Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the brand new Masters of the Universe Masterverse Deluxe She-Ra, who's explicitly branded with her classic toy line, Princess of Power. The She-Ra, like most Masterverse figures, is a highly articulated, roughly 7-inch scale figure, and in this case is representing kind of a blend of She-Ra's Filmation cartoon appearance as well as her original toy appearance. And as such comes with some optional accessories, so you can get that perfect look for the character that reflects how you best remember her. That being said, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at She-Ra's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll get a good look at the figure, check out all reposability, we'll swap in and out her different accessories. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll get my final thoughts. So She-Ra comes in your deluxe size Masterverse packaging, very similar to the normal one, just much wider. So you get this big window on the front. You see the main She-Ra figure in what I would call her Filmation getup, right? Tiara, smaller cape. Her sword of protection is just right there outside of her hand. Then off to the left, you have a more intricate cape with some shoulder armor that's a little more reminiscent of her like old toy appearance and appearance in some ancillary media. And then we also get a masked head over here, which is both a reference to her old toy that had a tiara that could flip down and form like a ballroom mask. And that look was also used for a lot of like children's books and stuff that featured She-Ra. So it wasn't really shown in the cartoon, but it is a way that some people knew the character. And I appreciate having the options there. We also get 2 extra hands here, which appear to both be closed fists. And then we get a shield. Now the shield's interesting. The original She-Ra figure included a sword and shield. However, this shield's a little bit different because this shield is actually the Sword of Protection. Because unlike He-Man's Sword of Power, the Sword of Protection can actually shapeshift into different items and weapons to, aid She-Ra in the best way that she needs it to at the time. And it has been known to turn into a shield that looks like this. So it's a little weird because technically she shouldn't be able to hold the sword and shield at the same time because they're the same object. But if you're looking to recreate the classic toy look, you're probably just going to want to ignore that fact and have her, sword and boarding anyway, because it just looks really cool. Down here at the bottom, as I pointed out, you get your Princess of Power logo, which is something that hasn't been seen since, Classics, I think? Well, I guess there was the PowerCon She-Ra, right? That actually used the Princess of Power style packaging instead of the MOTU Origins one. But the retail She-Ra just used regular Origins packaging. We get her name there, Mattel. We get kind of a color-inverted version of that 40th anniversary sticker. The ones that I recall seeing so far have had a silver background with black print. This is like the other way around, where it's black background and then all the printed stuff is just silver. So that's interesting. Right off to the side here, we just get her name and then her title, Most Powerful Woman in the Universe. So the same as pretty much all the other Masterverse stuff. And then on this side, we get this just amazing artwork of She-Ra holding her sword up. And I'm assuming this is her like right after she transforms, because you can see she's like summoning the power. So looks very cool. Her hair is just flying everywhere. Like it's very realistically so, like where she's got stray hairs and everything. The cape's all puffed. I mean, really just beautiful artwork. Love that. And then on the back here, we get this nice full spread. You can see She-Ra riding her trusty steed into battle, or I guess I should say flying on him. We can see a bit of Etheria in the background there. And then we get her name, we get her title again, and then some really nice flavor text, which this light's kind of blocking. There you go. All right, so it says, when Adora raises a sword of protection above her head and cries, "For the honor of Grayskull," she transforms into She-Ra, Princess of Power and leader of Etheria's Great Rebellion. Now, I'm honestly kind of surprised I'm sitting here right now, like reviewing a She-Ra Princess of Power toy, because obviously I'm not the target audience for that old toy line. But I gotta say, Mattel's done such a good job of seamlessly marketing, the He-Man stuff with now the She-Ra stuff that we see here and, some upcoming things in Masterverse, that it doesn't feel any different. You know what I mean? It feels like part of one cohesive story, where they do seem to be maturing the tone of She-Ra right here. You talk about, the leader of Etheria's Great Rebellion. I mean, that's no different than how it was in the old cartoon, but it feels more high stakes, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like just this puffy, happy little cartoon. So I like that. Like when they can take a concept that you enjoyed as a kid because it was a kid's show or a kid's toy line, and then just grow it up a little bit. Like not make it super gritty or anything. Keep it what it is, but frame it in a way that an adult could appreciate. And that's the vibe I'm getting here. Maybe I'm just rationalizing to myself that I'm buying a She-Ra doll. I don't know. Maybe I need to do some self-reflection. But I feel like this is a lot more grown up than the She-Ra toys of the 80s. Just the art style, everything, the presentation. All right. Enough rationalizing my own masculinity here. Down at the bottom, we have our cross-sells. So we have our CGI series He-Man. So he's from the new, Netflix He-Man and the Master of the Universe show. We have a new Eternia Zodak. At least I think he's new Eternia. Pretty sure he is, right? CGI series Skeletor. Catra from Princess of Power. And then Hordak, who's also branded for Princess of Power. Though he did exist as, He-Man villain first. But he is the more prominent villain in She-Ra's show, so it makes sense. Now, Hordak was actually released alongside She-Ra. I'm pretty sure they're casemates because I've seen them stocked together on shelves. He's also a deluxe figure. I'll be reviewing him after her. These guys, I think they're coming. I think a few of them are like in my pile of loot right now. Actually, I think all of them might be at this point. So they released a little bit later, but they're kind of sort of part of the same wave. All right, so that's everything to see. Again, just amazing artwork. And I love that they just took the whole back of the box to do this. They didn't just crop it or anything. Just a full, beautifully done drawing right there. I love that. I love the one on the side, too. Actually, you can tell it's different artists because She-Ra's face is pretty... Well, I think it's different artists. Maybe it's the same one, but the face looks pretty different between the two. Actually, the tiara looks different. Yeah, I think it's probably different artists. All right, so, yeah, overall, very nice presentation. It's got me excited for a She-Ra figure. So now, let's go ahead and open this thing up. All right, now we get She-Ra out of her packaging, and you can see all her accessories laid out here. You have her shoulder armor with cape. Very, very big cape. Very nice looking. You got the 2 extra hands, and one of them is a closed fist. The other one is actually a weapon-holding hand. You get your sword of protection. You have the alternate head with her mask, and then the shield. I guess you'd call it the shield of protection, maybe? So that seems a little obvious, right? Shields are supposed to protect. It's kind of the whole point, so probably a redundant name. All right, so checking out the She-Ra figure herself. As we can see, she comes with her regular tiara head, which is, I think, the face that most people recognize for She-Ra. Most of her outfit is very much based off of the Filmation cartoon and the particular design, that they came up with for that. And she has her, simple red cape. It's attached to like a little necklace or choker right here that you can see. And it doesn't stay down very well. Kind of wants to like ride up all the time. But it looks okay, I guess. All right, so the posability is pretty much everything you'd expect in Masterverse. You get the double ball joint for the head, your universal shoulders, your bicep swivel, double elbow bend. And some of those bends are easier to make than others, which is pretty par for the course with these. That one's particularly tough. Jeez, it does not want to bend. All right, we get our universal wrists. She has a ball joint in the upper torso. She actually does have waist swivel. It's kind of hard to do because like the skirt's kind of in the way if you try to manipulate it, but like it does turn. See? She's got universal hips, a thigh swivel. Now look at this. The inner thigh on this leg, it's got like a defect in it. It's kind of got a little dip in there, which is kind of unsightly. Luckily it's on the inner thigh, so you're probably not going to be seeing it too much. You get your double knee bend. You get a boot swivel, which, oddly enough, kind of shows like the gap between the calf piece and the boot. I don't think they planned that out very well, but yeah. You do have a boot swivel. The one on her, right leg, doesn't really swivel all the way. It's kind of weird. It just kind of stops and doesn't want to turn anymore. Whereas the one on this side turns all the way, so I don't know. But I've heard at least one other person mention that they had that same issue. This one also seems to have a bigger gap too, so this seems to be a pretty common manufacturing defect on this thing, which is really annoying. Your universal ankles right here, and that's it for the articulation. The paintwork is great. they did not shy away from the gold paint at all. It's on everything from, you know, what you'd expect, like the tiara and like the bracelet and everything, but it's on her boots too. And not only, you know, is that stuff all painted gold, but you have really nice design work on top of the paint in more of like a bronzish color. You can see it on the boots, you see it on the bracers. I mean, she is incredibly well painted. Not just the gold either, but all the different design cues, the little jewel, like the stomach area, the jewel in the tiara. Her face is incredibly well painted. This is probably the most well-painted female face in Masterverse so far. I think we're finally getting the hang of this. Even the hair's got a lot of paint work. Like, underneath, it's still pretty bright blonde, but then around it, they add a lot more, like, gold accents to it. So, makes her a little less cartoony, a little more realistic looking. Helps her hair color come closer to that of the vintage-style He-Man. Maybe that was the intention, so they match a little better. So overall, she's a good-looking figure. She's not perfect. As we saw, my copy and apparently other copies have some defects, which don't seem to be very uncommon. So I would say if you pick this up, there's a pretty high chance you'll encounter at least one of those issues. But those hiccups aside, I think this is a really nice-looking figure. When it comes to the sculpt work, the paint work, the fact that the cape is made of a really nice, just soft material. Much better than the stuff that the Origins figure's made. It's like silky. I like it. I really think this came out well. It's a good introduction to, you know, the greater Princess of Power subline they're going to do. And again, this is kind of new territory for me. If you've been following me for a while, you know I was too young to catch He-Man when it first came out. And what I did know about it was, you know, looking at people's like older toys and watching reruns. And I sure as heck didn't really know anything about She-Ra or her TV show. Like, it was years later before I even found out She-Ra was a thing. So, yeah, if I, you know, go any further into this part of Masterverse, it's going to be all new territory for me. So, I mean, I have a vague idea of who some characters are, but I've never watched the show. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how much of an incentive I have to keep going down the rabbit hole. Or maybe I'll just stop at She-Ra. Like She-Ra, Hordak, I mean, they're major players in the MOTU storyline, so it's really all you need. But we'll see. All right, now let's go ahead and check out her alternate hands real quick. So you just pop this one out. This one is a closed fist. Make her punch one of Hordak's minions or something. And then the other one is just an alternate weapon holding hand. So if you want her to hold the sword of protection in this offhand here, because let's face it, pretty much every action figure ever is right-handed. Now you can do that. In fact, let's go ahead and give her the sword. Pretty cool looking. So the sword is actually molded in a clear blue plastic like the gem you see, and then the rest is silver paint. And it's the same thing with the shield too. And what's cool about that is even though it's fully painted, the paint is ever so slightly translucent. So under light, it gives the objects almost this ethereal glowing quality, especially the shield. Let me see how well I can show that off for you. Can you see kind of the blue glow just shining through the silver there? It looks really nice. And you can see, like I said, it is all actually clear plastic. You can also see that it uses the same kind of little strap system that the like He-Man and Grayskull shields use, albeit smaller. So, you know, they're definitely looking at what's worked so far in Masterverse over the last, you know, year or so. And really, I think, starting to perfect the art and come into their own and, you know, hopefully create something that rivals the Classics line in terms of, you know, having a place in collectors' hearts. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch the hands back really quick so we can fully armor up. Pop that off. Okay, now with this open hand, you can slide the shield through like so. It'll probably also work with the weapon holding hand. However, you may have to attach it with the hand detached like we did for the 40th anniversary He-Man. Not sure, I'll test that out later. Either way, it'll work, I'm sure. So, all right, so now she's, you know, fully armed, looks a little more heroic, a little more ready for battle. But what is a warrior without their armor? So let's go ahead. We're gonna remove the standard head as well as the cape. And I'd recommend kind of getting your finger like up underneath the hair to pop the head off, like so. See the cape's held on by just a ring there. You put the fancy shoulder armor on. You gotta like push it down until it sets into place. And then get the masthead on there. Which does not pop on as firmly as the regular head. But like it'll stay, it's on there. Just doesn't have that satisfying pop like the other one does. All right, now this I think is really cool. This is like battle mode She-Ra in my opinion. And even though in most fiction she never really utilized this mask or helmet or whatever you want to call it, it really just gives her this far more serious look. She goes from looking like a princess to looking like, you know, the goddess Athena or something. So I like it. I also do appreciate the callback to the original toy and like the origins take and all that stuff. It's always good to have options. And I like the fact that if you want, you know, a more cartoon-inspired She-Ra, you can have that. But if you want something like this that really, really plays into the warrior aspect of the character, you have that too. And of course, you can mix and match them. Like, maybe you like the armor, but you don't like the masked face, right? So we can always pop this back off. Pop this head back on. See that? That one clicks. The other one doesn't. I have no idea why. And, you know, you get something like an in-between. This, you know, kind of reminds me of the Origins figure, where she has a little bit more armor and stuff going on, but still has a tiara. I mean, she has the mask too, but, you know. Overall, I like it, right? No matter what options you choose, whatever combination you choose, she looks really, really good with all of them. So I'm very happy with this. Now here's a fun group shot with the recently released 40th anniversary He-Man, which is basically the Masterverse take on the vintage He-Man design, and a very accurate one at that. And I felt that it was only fitting to put She-Ra in her classic or vintage look to be paired with it. And I think as, you know, pseudo-realistic takes on the character designs, these two succeed just very, very well. Now, obviously, she doesn't look just like her vintage figure. There's a lot different. The armor and everything on the old figure was more of like mesh, almost like a tutu, than like a battle skirt. It was kind of weird. And of course, the whole tiara and mask being one piece means that neither head that comes with this figure perfectly matches that piece. But overall, you know, it's a pretty close look. She's not aiming to be this perfect recreation like the vintage He-Man is here. So I think she serves multiple purposes well enough. So yeah, just getting these two together, they look very serious. They look like a pair of heroes you would want to take very, very seriously. And I like that. Again, I love when you take something from your childhood and mature it to something you can appreciate into your adulthood. And I think they just really hit the ball out of the park with both of these in that regard. So yeah, even though She-Ra is like, you know, the girl's toy or whatever, I think she looks perfectly at home next to this figure. I mean, the aesthetics and everything. Her color palette's a little bit brighter. I guess they could earth it up a little bit. Make her golds closer like a bronze. Give her a deeper tan like the He-Man has. But, you know, then it wouldn't really be She-Ra like that. So I'm good with it. I think these two are more than a good match for each other. And yeah, if you collect MOTU, you collect Masterverse, and you're looking for your old school designs, I think you found it here if you're trying to add She-Ra to the mix. Since I keep mentioning an old school She-Ra, here is some sort of representation of that. Now this is Origins She-Ra, which is not, you know, really a recreation of the original toy. It's more so, what if She-Ra was in the vintage MOTU line? Because the thing about the Princess of Power line is that it was made explicitly to be more in scale with dolls and Barbies and stuff than it was Masters of the Universe. As such, they were significantly taller. In fact, she was probably closer in height to this thing than she was to that. But when they decided to put She-Ra in Origins, they were kind of correcting a really, really, I would say, old mistake that was made on Mattel's part back in the day, right? So She-Ra was made, they had a whole different division doing the Princess Power toy line. It was kind of like the girls' toys division, and, you know, was full of primarily women who were used to making toys for girls. So they, you know, had a certain way of doing things. And when the guys over on the MOTU side of things, heard what they were doing, how they were doing their own scale, they hated that. They're like, no, 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 no. Like, we want a unified scale, and we want something to, be able to market to the boys too, so that the boys will like She-Ra. And, the She-Ra team was just like, no, we're not doing that. And I think, there's been a lot of speculation that could be why it didn't do so well, and kind of why MOTU itself started going under. Because the He-Man Masters of the Universe cartoon, which was kind of the driving force for sales for the toys, well, that ended. It was all over. But the She-Ra cartoon kept going. And, they were hoping that the boys that collected MOTU all those years would be like, they just move over into She-Ra. But the problem is when they'd go get, action figures of these new She-Ra characters or Princess Power characters, they were like Barbie dolls. And most little boys, just being realistic, don't want that. So, yeah, MOTU just kind of died out after that because it didn't really have the supporting fiction, and the boys didn't want the toys that had supporting fiction. So, a lot of people kind of blame that move for the downfall of the original Masters of the Universe toy line. So, this is a really interesting what-if scenario. Like, what if they did make She-Ra, but they made the toys compatible with Masters of the Universe? I do personally think it would have been better for Masters of the Universe. I don't know if the Princess of Power toy line would have done as well, because the women that were, working in this department, they obviously know how to market to little girls, and the little girls do like dolls for the most part. At least, in the 1980s they did. So maybe She-Ra wouldn't have done as well. But then, the flip side of that is He-Man would have done better. I don't know. So now we kind of fixed that whole thing, right? Because as far as I know, they're not going to just do a standalone Princess of Power toy line, at least not one based on the classic franchise. You had the newer Netflix show and all that. So basically, She-Ra is going to appear in either Origins or Masterverse, which means she will be scaled to match the other characters. And I think for, your longtime collectors and stuff, that's the best move. I think even the now grown women that collected She-Ra back in the day will more or less agree that's probably for the best, because they probably want to collect all these things. I don't know. That's purely speculation on my part, but I think it's a good choice. If you're trying to market these to the same people, which, if you're releasing them under one unified line like Masterverse, you are, right? You're trying to get the same people to buy all these toys. You gotta have, some cohesiveness to it, and I think this is the way to go. And I really like the idea of having She-Ra and She-Ra adjacent characters in Origins to go with your old school vintage stuff like, a lot of people hoped they would get back in the 80s. But then if you want your more high-end or modern stuff, well, you're covered in Masterverse too. And she's made explicitly to blend in with other Masterverse figures. Whether they're Princess of Power, whether they're New Eternia, Revelation, whatever, they're all close enough, at least in scale, to where they can be part of a collection together. And this completes our look at the new Masterverse She-Ra. I have to say, I think this is an absolutely great figure. I feel that Mattel and Masterverse has had a hard time when it's come to the female figures, and I don't know, they always just seemed kind of off. Especially the face. Usually the faces just, they don't look great. Not terrible. I've seen way worse. But something always seemed a little off about them. It was the eyes or, whatever. Here, it seems like they're really hitting their stride, which is a good thing, because if they are doing Princess of Power, well, they're going to be making a lot of female Masterverse figures, so they need to get on the ball there. And I think this is a really good proof of concept for how good these can look. We've already seen some shots of like Catra and I think Frosta, right? So we have an idea of how they're going to look, but getting it in hand is a little bit different than seeing like some small stock image on the internet. And I gotta say, I really like this thing. The way I have her displayed right now, that's currently my preferred setup. Tiara head, so you can actually see the face, and then just the cool like pauldrons with the bigger cape. I just think that's like the most heroic looking She-Ra that you can get out of this toy. But that's the thing I love about it, is like you have so many options. You can have the sword or the shield, the sword and the shield, if you want to kind of break canon a little bit and just have her look cool. You can give her a little cape, a big cape, armor, no armor, mask, tiara. Like, you get a lot of different ways you can display the She-Ra according to your own personal taste. I imagine if you grew up watching the cartoon, you probably want the more minimalist look, smaller cape and everything. But if you, like the old toy line, or you're more of a MOTU fan, where you want your characters to look more I guess, warrior-like than princess-like, yeah, you're probably going to want something like this, maybe with the masked face. And I really like that you have the option to choose. I also think she came out great. I do have those weird QC issues. You know, I got that weird, like, little divot in the thigh swivel there, which is kind of unsightly, but is probably just relegated to my copy. And then there is that weird issue with the right boot swivel that apparently is not a one-off issue. I don't know why it's like that, and I heard somebody say that even their other previous Masterverse female characters, like Tila, have had that issue. Kind of have to go back and check now, because maybe that's true. Maybe it's always a problem with that particular part, and just an issue in the manufacturing that they haven't corrected yet, so I'll have to see. But, you know, in spite of all that, in spite of the hiccups, I think it's an absolutely wonderful figure, and if you are collecting Masterverse at all, and you want like a nice, fully fleshed out roster of characters, especially like the more classic or vintage characters, I say she's a must-have. Like, even though She-Ra was her own thing, she was also still very much a part of He-Man's journey, being his sister, and being, you know, another guardian of Castle Grayskull. And I think that, you know, either through her own importance as a character or just being a great-looking figure, she's a must-have for your collection. Of course, that is just how I feel about the She-Ra. Now I want to know what you all think of this toy. Is this something that you want as a MOTU collector? You know, do you find She-Ra to be an intrinsic part of Master of the Universe? Or are you maybe a She-Ra collector? Maybe you grew up collecting that and you've been waiting for this for a very long time. Or you don't want this for some reason. Maybe you never liked She-Ra, maybe you don't like the way this came out, or you just don't really have a special interest in her because she is aesthetically a little bit different from like your standard He-Man stuff. Any and all feedback, as always, is welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss that a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this very exciting look at the brand new Masters of the Universe Masterverse She-Ra from Princess of Power. With all that said, I will see you next time.